Staying ahead of the competition for 45 years like Ford has done with the F-150 requires constant advancement. The trick is to figure out how you can make changes without disenfranchising loyal followers. I've spent a bit of time with the F-150 Lightning at the press event when the first ones rolled off the assembly line, cruising down Woodward for the Dream Cruise with a bunch of other classic cars, and driving here to the Sedona, Arizona area from Phoenix. Sure, I have some driving impressions, but the real insights will start tomorrow morning when I make the long journey to San Diego, California and back. Before the sun goes down, I'll start by covering the basics of this F150 Lightning XLT. While GM, Ram, and Toyota talk about future electric trucks for the masses, Ford is in production. In fact, they intend to be producing F-150 Lightnings at a rate of 150,000 annually by next year. They have done so by using many parts from the traditional F-150s, including the lightweight aluminum body. Despite the common components, they claim this is the most aerodynamic F-150 ever, without identifying the drag coefficient for hard proof. Redesigned running boards, hood, wheels, and front grille that replaces air intake holes with a smoother textured surface all play a part in that. This LED light bar is standard on XLT, Lariat, and Platinum trims. It's one quick and easy way to tell the difference between an electric and a gas version of the F-150. But you probably want to find out what's under the hood, so let's take a look. The Mega Power frunk has a power opening and closing mechanism standard on all trims. The interior storage here is 14.1 cubic feet. You can fit 2 golf bags in here and a payload of up to 400 pounds. This opening is rather wide and the liftover height is 34.5 inches. This is a great area to be able to store and secure things that are stinky, dirty, or might be of high value. I also really like the fact that it has this storage area in here for food and beverage that also has a drain. So you can use it for tailgating or washing it down if you have any kind of dirty gear in here. This frunk also has 4 outlets and 2 USBs, so you can draw 2.4 kilowatts of power. If you're wondering what 2.4 kilowatts can power, this includes things like saws, tools, and speakers. Digging down a little deeper, 2 inboard electric motors are paired with an all-new frame. Ford says this is the strongest steel ever on an F-150 frame. In between those motors sits either a 98 kilowatt-hour standard range battery pack or a 131 kilowatt-hour extended range battery pack, like equipped here. Back to the Lightning powertrain. The standard range configuration puts out 452 horsepower, and the extended range system produces up to 580 horsepower. Both output the most torque of any F-150 ever at 775 pound-feet. Depending on the pack, the curb weight ranges from about 6,100 pounds to 6,700 pounds. Both packs consist of lithium-ion pouch cells that are currently assembled in Ypsilanti, Michigan at the Rawsonville Components plant. As a side note, Ford will be shifting most of their battery production in the coming years to Blue Oval City, where they just recently broke ground outside of Memphis, Tennessee, and in Kentucky. This partnership with Korean battery supplier SK Innovation will help Ford secure mass battery supply. They'll come closer to closing the loop with battery recycling on site in partnership with Redwood Materials. Depending on where the raw materials are acquired to make these new batteries, future Ford products could qualify for the Inflation Reduction Act's new EV tax credit of up to $7,500, which becomes available in 2023. We've covered the frunk and the undercarriage. Now let's talk about the back half of this truck. This truck bed here is 5.5 feet long. It only comes in one configuration, but let's talk about the power feature with the tailgate. There are 2 power tailgate options. The first one is the Tailgate Assist, which is standard on Pro and XLT trims. Essentially what this is if you pull up about 4 inches, the tailgate will automatically close for you. The other option is a full power opening and closing mechanism, which is standard on the Lariat and Platinum trims. For now, the Lightning only comes in one bed size. This 5.5-foot cargo area has a lot of available liners, accessories, and dividers. But one thing I would like to see is a power tonneau cover from the factory.
The length is 67.1 inches and 50.6 inches wide between the wheelhouses. It is rated to support up to 2,235 pounds of payload. The available onboard scales can tell you how much you've loaded back here, and with the intelligent range system, can help you estimate range calculations as well.
There's also standard Pro Power on board back here with up to 9.6 kilowatts of power in total.
9.6 kilowatts of total power can power e-bikes, high-power tools, lights, and so much more. This makes the truck very usable in many applications, considering you can plug many of these items in all at once.
There's also an available step here to get into the back of the truck, and you'll notice there's a measuring stick here on top. This is a really great work surface, and there are even some little holes that you can clamp on down, so if you're cutting anything, it'll keep it nice and stable. There are 4 burly attachment points here that I can see being really useful for tying down all of my camping gear and even bringing e-bikes with me.
These connecting points are part of Ford's Box Link system, which works with many of their current F-150 bed accessories.
There is some lighting back here in the bed area so you can see at night. But if you want to work at night or if you want to light up your campsite, Ford also offers an available 360-degree zone lighting. And essentially what that does is it allows you to pick a section or zone area to light up around the vehicle or have lighting around the entire vehicle.
You might have noticed a camera here. This allows drivers and passengers to check on the cargo in the bed, or maybe see if the tailgate was left down from the infotainment screen inside the truck. I'd like to be able to view this camera remotely from the app like Rivian, Genesis, Tesla, and BMW offer. That feature was not available in the Ford Pass app when we filmed this review. The F-150 Lightning can tow up to 10,000 pounds. About 50% range loss while towing is fairly typical, which means I'd expect about 160 miles of towing from this 320-mile XLT configuration. It's important to note that the aerodynamics of the trailer you're towing may affect range more than weight when traveling at highway speeds. While we're talking about range, another common point of high drag for EVs is wheels. Ford doesn't list the range effect of each available wheel option, but generally speaking, smaller wheels are more efficient. They have an 18-inch, 20-inch, and 22-inch option available based on trim levels. Standard range packs have an estimated 240 miles of range, whereas the extended range packs are estimated at 320 miles. There is a battery warranty of 8 years, 100,000 miles, with a 70% capacity retention guarantee.
One of my all-time favorite features in the automotive industry is the Secura code. And a lot of brands are offering phone as a key, including Ford. Some are even offering NFC or RFID cards that you just tap on the pillar to get inside. And brands like Rivian are offering waterproof wristbands that have an NFC reader that you can get inside with. And Genesis is taking it up another level with face recognition. But honestly, over the past decade, Ford has really been leading the way with this because this isn't just a simple keyless entry system. What this does, it also allows you to unlock all the doors and give you shortcuts to opening your front and your tailgate.
Aesthetics are always part of the equation, and the F-150 Lightning offers a wide range of paint colors. 9 to be exact, with 2 new options for 2023. Body damage repairs with other EVs are notoriously slow and expensive. Replacement panels and matching paint can be very hard to come by, especially for low-volume newcomers like Rivian and Lucid, or expensive products like the Hummer EV or Tesla Model X. Most of the Lightning's body panels are shared with literally the best-selling vehicle on planet Earth. That kind of production volume can keep repair time and costs down. I'd say that's a big advantage for Ford.
Well, the sun is setting, and now that we've talked about all the exterior features, it's time for me to get some sleep, and we'll kick off tomorrow morning talking more about the driving and charging experience.
I'll be traveling about 1,000 miles with a starting elevation of about 3,300 feet above sea level, and arriving in San Diego, which sits at 62 feet above sea level. Then I'll make that same trek in the opposite direction. Tomorrow will be a hot day at just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The Lightning's onboard AC charger can support 11.3 kilowatts of incoming power to the standard range battery and a whopping 19.2 kilowatts to the extended range battery like the one I have here. This is one of the fastest AC charging rates of any EV on the market. An available intelligent backup power system lets the truck support V2H or vehicle to home. As long as you have the equipment installed on your home or building, the extended battery on the F150 can offer anywhere from 3 to 10 days of power depending on your usage. Ford includes the 80 amp Charging Station Pro with each extended range battery Lightning, which is a great perk. Standard range Lightning owners can pay $1,310 for this charging station.
All right, so I just put my destination into San Diego, and the computer says there will be 2 charging stops on the route. And initially, the gauge up front on the instrument cluster had said that I had 298 miles of range. And then now that I've calculated the route, a message screen came up in the middle of the instrument cluster to tell me that my calculation for the range is revised. So now I have a projected 242 miles. So that's taking in consideration the route, the topography, the temperature, so a lot of different calculations in order to try to give me the best, most accurate amount of range. So to start off this trip, I'm going to use the Sync 4 system. This here is the smaller 12-inch screen that comes on the lower end trims. You can get the 15.5-inch big Sync 4A screen on the higher end models, but this system's still the same, will do route planning for me.
I prefer the 12-inch screen because it has a balance of buttons and knobs I can use without taking my eyes off the road. I'm not the biggest fan of the layout of the Sync system because I find there are too many layers to the menu system. While Sync has improved greatly over the years, I'm really looking forward to Ford's switch to Android OS coming in 2023. Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay work with the Lightning display, and I'd probably use those if this were my daily driver. As far as the interior goes, there are a few differences between packaging options, but in this XLT, the cloth seats are comfortable and don't feel itchy or overly warm. As with the Mustang Mach-E, the F-150 has an exceptional air conditioning system. I've driven just about every EV available, and I can tell you that instantly powerful and cold AC is not common. If you live in a hot weather climate, this could be a game changer. When it comes to heating, Ford is using a resistive PTC heating unit in the Lightning. Compared to modern heat pumps found in many other EVs, the system is not very energy efficient. I'm not sure how switching to a heat pump might change the effectiveness of the AC, but I'd be interested to find out.
So I'm just trying to see if I can figure out if there's a way that I can see what my range calculation is for my first stop of the navigation. So it looks like all you had to do is just click on the instruction for where the next turn is going to be, and it gives you this turn list over here if you want to see more information, whether that's next turn, how much further you need to go, and how long it's going to project to take you, but also the charging stops, which is what I was looking for, where it says exactly what I'm going to arrive with for a range and how much I should charge for that particular stop, and then move on to the next. So I really like that this is available right on this screen. So for this first stretch, I will be traveling, it looks like 210 miles, which is 3 hours and 14 minutes. I have 239 miles on my instrument cluster here for my range. So looks like we're gonna make our way, and hopefully those projections will stay accurate. I'll be stopping at an Electrify America station, and for about 20 minutes. It looks like that's all I'll need in order to get to the next stop. I've experienced unreliable charging whenever I go to an Electrify America station, but hopefully they're starting to improve. We'll find out when we get to this Dateland Travel Center. I'm going to start to engage some of the driver assistance features. Now, something to note is that there are several different packaging options for these systems. So Ford has a system called Copilot 360, and there are a couple different trim levels of that, and they're tied to certain trims of the vehicle. So whether that's Pro, XLT, Lariat, or Platinum. This does not have the Blue Cruise system. It just has some of the assist features, so I'm going to turn those on now. First, my lane keeping system, and this is also going to keep me in the lane while I'm driving down the highway. The other thing I'm going to do is set the cruise control, and I'll have it be adaptive. So if there's a vehicle in front of me, it will slow down and speed up with traffic all the way from a stop, and it will continue to go after traffic starts moving again. So I'm going to start that here. It is a 65, so I'll speed up a little bit. Now as I change lanes, I am noticing that this has the blind spot information system. What that entails is a little icon on the mirror that lights up whenever someone is in that blind spot area. But companies like Honda, Hyundai, Tesla integrate their cameras that are either on the side pillars of the vehicle or under the mirrors. And since this F-150 Lightning has those cameras underneath the mirrors, maybe it could be configured where they can integrate this type of technology as well in an over-the-air software update. So I could have that camera view when I'm changing lanes either in the center screen or even better in the instrument cluster right in front of me. The speed limit just changed. Initially, when I first got on the highway, it was 65 miles per hour. And so I set my cruise control to about 70. And I just passed a speed limit sign that said 75. So the vehicle actually took it upon itself to take in consideration that adjustment. I can see the speed limit sign right on my instrument cluster, and it's lit up green all the way around it. And the vehicle automatically adjusted my cruise control to up to 85 miles per hour. So there's a 10 mile per hour buffer that it pushed up to. So having it automatically do it itself is going to make this road trip so much nicer. All right, so we are about 6 miles away from the first charging stop, and I will say for this first stretch of over 200 miles, I'm really impressed with the efficiency rating here. We have 2.1 miles per kilowatt hour, and considering we've gone through some elevation and I've been hearing some pretty heavy headwinds throughout the trip, this is a really great surprise. Now, I started off with about a 30-mile range estimate for when I arrived at the charging station with what I would have left, but now I'm projecting about 50-55 miles of range when I get to the charging station. So I'm having a little bit more than what is expected, which is also really nice. Now, this isn't the most efficient EV in the world, of course, but it is more efficient than what they're advertising so far that I'm seeing, and I really like that they are under-promising and over-delivering when it comes to range. Other EVs tend to over-promise, and that is really a deterrent for new buyers that have never bought an EV before. And something really significant is that Ford had pulled a survey with their reservation holders for the F-150 Lightning, and actually 80% of reservation holders had never had an EV before. So this will be their very first EV, which is so significant because you really want to instill confidence with new EV buyers. All right, we're pulling into the Dateland Travel Center at the Electrify America station here.
Arriving at Electrify America.
Now I'm starting to get some messaging on the center stack here, which says to charge the vehicle to 35% in order to get enough to move on to the next station. Something to note is if you are a new EV owner, is if your car can only accept a certain rate for the DC fast charging and the station offers more than that, if there's an opening for the compatible rate, definitely choose that one. So for example, this F-150 Lightning can support up to 150 kilowatts of DC fast charging. So I'm pulling into a 150 kilowatt charging station and leaving open the 350 kilowatt stations for people that can charge faster.
Unfortunately, 3 of the 4 stations here at this location are down, and the 4th station is having trouble with the handshake and won't accept plug-and charge. Plug and charge is the technology that is available on some public charging networks where you simply plug the vehicle in and it communicates with the charger to process payment and initiate the charging session. It is designed to be seamless and very similar to the experience that Tesla owners have when public charging.
So I plugged it in twice and the plug and charge feature did not work. So I ultimately went to the Electrify America app, opened that up, and selected the charging station. When I had the vehicle plugged in, at that point, I swiped across to initiate the charging session. So this is actually charging on my account and not the plug and charge account for this particular vehicle. Now, I can see a lot of charging information here on the main screen through the charge settings. I am increasing my charge here, but even on the instrument cluster, it's not giving me the data for how fast I'm charging, so it's pretty limited what I see here, but I do know by looking at the screen on the Electrify America station is that I'm at 133 kilowatts and I'm at 26% state of charge. So in these early lower end state of charge, I'm gonna pull the most out of the vehicle for that charging speed and charge up a lot quicker. And then as I move further into the charging curve, up to about 50 to 60 to 70%, that's when you'll start to see those rates taper down a little bit more, probably closer to 50 kilowatts ultimately on the back end. Now inside the Lightning, for charging information, you can click on the features tab and then go into the charge settings. And this screen is going to give you the information of your state of charge while you're fast charging. So right now we're at about 33%. It has information about my starting charge time and as well as what time that would project to hit 80%. There's also some information here on the instrument cluster. So it gives me the amount of range that I currently have, which is 113, and that's climbing. It's a 35% state of charge. Right down here at the bottom, it says 45% is going to be hit at 11:49 a.m. So it says 7 more minutes and then I'll hit that point. And that's about the point where I would be able to move on to the next charging station. But again, I'm going to charge a little bit more than that so that we can be safe and not sorry when we get to the next station if there's any issues. And then up here on the right, it says fast charging, that I will hit 90% state of charge at 12:34 p.m. at this rate and on this charging station. In the Ford Pass app, you can see some of the charging information on here too. So if you decide to go into a restaurant or away from the vehicle and still want to monitor your vehicle, you can do that through the app. If I click on this charge session, it gives me the information of what my state of charge is, 37% at this point, 122 miles. It has a 90% charge level, so essentially that means that, like I showed you in the center screen, that this vehicle is set to charge the battery up to 90%. We have an estimated finish time of 12:34 p.m. if I was to hit that 90% mark. I've spent 12 minutes on the charger now, so it'll tell me how long I'm at this charging station. I've added 65 miles, and this is telling me that it is on the Electrify America network when I'm utilizing DC fast charging. So it does give me information, but again, there is no information about what the rate of charge is. And it looks like now on the Electrify America screen, I can see outside is 103 kilowatts, so still pulling a decent amount at 39% state of charge. Now this is absolutely not my first time charging on the third-party CCS network, and I will say that I have consistently had issues when charging on particularly Electrify America has been a big problem. And people saw that on the TV show that I was on NBC Sports called Charge Across America, where I drove a Mustang Mach-E with my partner Ryan across the country in order to try to win an EV rally. And we did win, but it was a little bit challenging because we did come across problems on the network consistently. Now, I've also driven more than just Fords on the CCS network. I've also experienced the Nissan Ariya on the CCS network, the Lucid Air, the Rivian R1T. So this isn't just a siloed experience. It is a problem that everyone that is opting for that third-party CCS network is going to experience. And unfortunately, The other problem is that there are a lot of disparate pieces of whether apps or screens or in-vehicle information that don't provide all of that data in one spot. So in order to find all the information about the charging session, I have to either look at the screen on the charging station, I have to look for some of the information in the car, but not all of it is here, or I have to pull up different apps to be able to get that information. And the same goes with route planning for the most part. Another thing is that the Ford F-150 Lightning did not tell me in the screen here that some of the stations were down at this location. And so when I pulled up the Electrify America app, it told me that there were 2 out of 4 available, but in reality, only 1 of these stations is available, 3 of them are out. So the information is not up to date either. And I feel extremely lucky that this station was open and no one else was charging here. Otherwise, we'd be stuck here for a lot longer period of time. Imagine if I was to come here on a Friday or a weekend when it gets busy and people are traveling more, I'd have to wait a really long time to get a charge. Right now the vehicle is telling me that if I charge up to 51%, I can make it to the next station and be able to charge there. I'm actually going to charge for a little bit longer because coming to this station and having a few problems and not knowing whether or not I would be able to charge, I think I should probably get a little bit more range so that I have more buffer to be able to charge if I need to go to another location and the chargers aren't working. Unfortunately, the reliability of the CCS network is not as high as, say, a Tesla network. And that's just the facts right now. All right, I went inside and I got a snack and refreshments and all that, and I have come back to the car and I'm at 85% state of charge. I have 297 miles of range, so it should be plenty to get to the next station and then some. Now, for this particular session, it took me about 50 minutes to get to this point, and it's costing me $40 here when I stop the charge. So let's do that. I got a total of 94 kilowatt hours for this charging session. As you'll see, $40.85. It's pulling actually 95 kilowatt hours for this charging session. So although this percentage of charge is incorrect, the car tells me I have 86% and 298 miles of range. So let's make our way on closer to San Diego. The F-150 Lightning has independent suspension all the way around the vehicle. So this is actually the first implementation of the rear independent suspension, and I think it's a pretty big difference. I so far really enjoy the driving experience with a very floaty ride. And something to note is that I've been driving in normal mode, and the reason why I chose to drive in that drive mode in particular is because I wanted to see exactly what the range, the quality of the ride would be on a normal everyday basis.
If you want to take the Lightning off-road, there's a drive mode for that too. It also has a selection for locking the rear differential. This will allow you to get yourself out of just about any situation by essentially having the rear wheels rotate at the same speed.
That 360-degree camera is super helpful for pulling into a charging station like this.
This charging session was smooth since no payment handshake was required. Electrify America was doling out network-wide complimentary charging sessions for all the charging stops for the rest of my trip. So far, the journey has been comfortable and enjoyable, especially with the driver assistance features engaged. I'm very impressed with how quiet the ride is, even at highway speeds of 85 miles per hour. But I've finally arrived in San Diego, and there's one historically important location that I want to stop by while I'm in town.
This is the site of the 1935 World's Fair in San Diego, California. And it just might be the perfect place to talk about why this truck matters. Today, the sign says San Diego Air and Space Museum, but for 50 years, this was the Palace of Transportation. It is the last standing building of 5 buildings built by, get this, Ford Motor Company for the World's Fair. From above, the building is shaped like an 8, with the fountains finishing the iconic V8 logo to celebrate their brand new revolutionary powertrain. The V8 has had 90 years powering Ford cars and trucks, and now I'm here with the next revolutionary powertrain. Let's drive around back and get into more detail. Ford also built this amphitheater, which regularly hosted concerts and other events for up to 3,000 guests, and it was broadcast over national radio. On these very grounds, there was an active assembly line where saleable automobiles were built and then driven by the public on a racetrack a short walk down the hill. So far, I've put over 600 miles on the Ford F-150 Lightning XLT. It has the capabilities and familiarity of the gas version, but it's just plain better. Quieter, smoother, faster, more powerful. I really don't need to say anything more, but I have 400 more miles to go, so I'm going to.
Due to significant material cost increases and other factors, Ford has adjusted MSRP starting with the opening of the next wave of F-150 Lightning orders. Pricing for the 2023 model year starts at $51,974 for Pro models, and Platinum Extended Range models start at $96,874. Even with 2 recent price hikes of the Lightning, I still believe it is a great value, especially when considering the competition. So let's quickly talk about competitors. There are only 2 consumer electric pickup trucks which are in production at the time of this review: Rivian's R1T and the very low volume GMC Hummer EV pickup. One big advantage the Lightning has over its competition is its starting MSRP of just over $51,000. It wins in payload and bed size too. The Hummer EV offers faster peak charging speeds, but it has a much larger battery pack, which means it will not necessarily be faster to charge, and the cost of charging is much higher. While all 3 trucks offer AC power outlets, only the Lightning currently offers bidirectional charging capability and supporting hardware. Future models, including the Chevy Silverado EV and the Cybertruck, are promising closer competition for Ford.
Well, I'm wrapping up my 1,000 mile plus trip with the F-150 Lightning, and I can say a lot of really great things about it, and there are a couple things I will hope to see improve over time. So let's talk about that real quick. Many of the things that I like most about the Ford F-150 Lightning are the things they didn't change. They've been perfecting this truck for decades, and honestly, it just feels like it's a swap of a powertrain. Now, when you make the switch from gas to diesel, you have some usability factors to consider, whether that's finding the locations of the pumps, the pricing, the DEF fluid, and I feel like this is kind of a similar transition with the F-150 Lightning, but when you actually go out on a road trip, you're relying on a third-party network. Although it's not Ford's fault, they do rely on the network, so the owners are going to have that experience of not knowing whether or not when they're on the road trip they're going to be able to charge. But I can't let Ford off the hook entirely because they haven't invested in building out their own network. Companies like Rivian, Volkswagen, Tesla, they have invested in building out a charging network that is ultimately going to become more of a factor as people buy electric vehicles based on the charging experience. There are a couple of things that I would like to see Ford change about the F-150 Lightning, and that would include the cruise control has a feature where it can read speed limit signs when you're on the highway. And unfortunately, it also picks up the speed limit signs that are applicable to vehicles towing things. So if I'm going 75 miles per hour and it sees that 55 mile per hour sign, it'll automatically immediately drop me down to that point, even if it doesn't apply to my vehicle. The other thing is that in one pedal drive, although I really love one pedal drive, this one at very, very slow speeds has a little bit of a brake grab that I think could be smoothed out, and these might be over-the-air software updates that Ford can integrate, and I really hope they do. But ultimately, those are very minor changes so far. I really love the F-150 Lightning, and if you don't have to travel far and rely on the CCS network all the time, I don't see why you wouldn't buy one of these if you're in the truck market. Well, now it's time for me to unplug, and unfortunately, I have to give this back. So I'm gonna head to the Phoenix airport and get back home to Pure, Michigan. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. And until next time, Drive, fly, ride. Go electric.